Here's a question nobody in Washington wants to answer. What if America is not winning this war? What if America is not even trying to win this war? What if the entire war, every missile launched, every carrier positioned, every speech about freedom and security is actually a trap? A trap that America walked into with its eyes open and now cannot walk out of. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's not anti-American sentiment. That is what the mathematics says. That is what history says. And today, I'm going to show you exactly why, step by step, in plain English, America is stuck in a war it cannot win, cannot stop, and cannot walk away from. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you will never look at this conflict the same way again. Let's start with something uncomfortable. Wars have a logic of their own. Once they begin, they stop being controlled by presidents and generals. They start controlling presidents and generals. Think about Ukraine. February 2022. Both sides knew within the first few weeks that a deal was possible. Both sides knew that the human cost, the economic cost, was catastrophic. And yet, years later, the war grinds on. People still dying. Economies still bleeding. For what? Because stopping a war requires someone to accept something unbearable, to accept loss, to accept humiliation, to look their own people in the eye and say, "We did not win." Almost no government on earth can bring itself to do that. Now apply that same logic to Iran. This war has already started, and it is already developing that same momentum, that same unstoppable gravity. The pressure to escalate is building. The political incentives to look strong are overwhelming, and the path toward a clean exit is nowhere in sight. But here's where Iran becomes even more dangerous than Ukraine. Because even if America wanted to stop, even if tomorrow the president decided, enough, let's negotiate, it still couldn't. Not because Iran refuses to talk, but because the price Iran would demand would be worse than the war itself. Imagine America picks up the phone, reaches out through Oman, through Qatar, back channels, quiet diplomacy. The message, let's talk ceasefire. Iran picks up. And here's what Iran says back. Fine. Two conditions. One, America pays approximately $1 trillion in war reparations for the sanctions, for the decades of economic suffocation, for the damage. Two, America leaves the Middle East permanently, every base, every carrier, every troop, gone forever. Now, some of you are already thinking, well, maybe America should leave the Middle East. Maybe that's not the worst idea. That thinking misses what happens next. The moment American military protection disappears from the Gulf, a chain reaction begins, and each link in that chain is more catastrophic than the last. Link 1. The GCC, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait. They exist because America protects them. The moment that protection vanishes, there is only one power left in the region capable of guaranteeing their survival: Iran. Overnight, the Gulf states become Iran's client states. They have no other option. Link 2. The petrodollar collapses. This is the one that will make your stomach drop. Right now, Gulf oil is sold in US dollars. Every nation on earth that needs that energy, which is most nations, has to hold dollars to buy it. That creates permanent global demand for the American currency, and those petrodollar earnings get recycled back into American treasury bonds, American debt markets. That recycling mechanism is literally what keeps a $39 trillion debt economy from collapsing. The moment the GCC falls under Iranian influence, that mechanism stops. The petrodollar dies. Link 3. Japan and South Korea look at what just happened, and they draw the only logical conclusion available to them. America left when things got hard. We cannot trust that alliance. Both nations accelerate their own military buildups. Their resources go toward their own defense instead of buying American weapons and supporting American infrastructure. Another blow. Link 4. Europe watches all of this and reaches its own conclusion. If America is retreating, why are we still fighting America's war in Ukraine? Europe cuts a deal with Russia. NATO fractures. 80 years of American strategic architecture in Europe, gone. Link 5. With the petrodollar dead, Asian alliances strained, and Europe fractured, the US dollar loses its status as the global reserve currency. Nations stop buying American debt. And America sitting on $39 trillion in obligations, has absolutely no way to service that debt without the global demand for dollars that reserve currency status provides. The economy doesn't slow down. It doesn't enter recession. It collapses. This is the ceasefire trap. America cannot accept Iran's terms, but it also cannot ignore them. It is stuck, suspended between a war it's losing and a peace deal that would destroy it faster. So if America cannot negotiate and cannot withdraw, what does it do? The answer, historically, is always the same. It escalates. Right now, there are reports of Marines being repositioned in the Pacific. And the rumor, and I want to be clear, this is a rumor, is that the target may be Karg Island. Karg Island, the place through which Iran exports approximately 90% of its oil. On the surface, the logic is irresistible. Take the island, destroy Iran's economic lifeline, bring Tehran to its knees without a single boot touching Iranian soil. Except, you can take Karg Island. You cannot hold Karg Island. The island sits close enough to the Iranian coast that artillery, drones, and missiles begin hitting it almost immediately. So to protect the Marines, you push toward the coast. But the coast is overlooked by the Zagros Mountains, so Iran hits you from the mountains. So you push into the mountains. And now you're inside Iran. Now you're not conducting a limited strike operation. You're in a land war inside one of the most geographically difficult countries on Earth. Mountain terrain, dispersed enemy, no clean front line. History has a word for this. Mission creep. In 1965, the United States sent 3,000 Marines into Da Nang, Vietnam, a limited mission, a defined objective. 4 years later, there were 500,000 American troops in Vietnam. 3,000 became 500,000. Why? Because once you've committed, once lives have been lost and money has been spent, leaving feels like saying those losses meant nothing. The sunk cost becomes psychologically unbearable. So you stay, you send more, you escalate, you hope that the next move will be the one that breaks the enemy. America did this in Vietnam, in Iraq, in Afghanistan. The terrain changes, the enemy changes, the trap does not. Now here's what the mainstream coverage is carefully not telling you. The American military does not want to fight this war. Not because American soldiers aren't brave, they are, but because American military planners have run this simulation over and over in classified war game after classified war game, and the result is always the same. America loses. The American military was built for a specific kind of war, shock and awe, overwhelming air superiority, precision strikes that collapse an enemy's defenses in days. That's how Iraq fell in 2003. Air supremacy in days, Baghdad in weeks. Iran watched all of that. Iran has been studying the American playbook for over 20 years. They didn't build a military designed to fight America. They built a military designed to make America's military useless. Dispersed forces, underground facilities, drone swarms, hypersonic missiles, proxy networks stretching from Lebanon to Yemen to Iraq. Every American advantage neutralized. And those two aircraft carriers sitting in the region, the Abraham Lincoln and the Gerald Ford, the most powerful naval vessels ever built, they're staying far away from Iranian waters. Because Iran has spent 2 decades building one specific capability, making aircraft carriers the most expensive targets in human history. A carrier strike group moving within range of Iranian hypersonic missiles is not a show of strength. It's a gift. So the carriers posture, they threaten, they project, but they don't close the distance. And Iran knows they won't. So where does that leave us? America cannot stop, cannot withdraw, cannot win cleanly, and is being pulled step by step toward a ground invasion that history tells us ends in catastrophe. Is there a way out? Honestly, yes. But it requires something that modern American politics finds almost impossible to do. It requires wisdom. This war does not exist in a vacuum. It is connected to the trade war with China, to the grinding conflict in Ukraine, to the fractures emerging across the global alliance system. These are not separate problems. They are all symptoms of the same underlying condition. An empire that is overextended. When you have military bases in 80 countries, you give your enemies 80 different ways to provoke you, to drag you into conflicts that drain your resources, damage your credibility, and expose your limits for the entire world to watch. The only real path forward, the only one that doesn't end in catastrophe, is a fundamental shift in posture. Not domination, not empire, partnership. America sitting down with Russia, China, and Iran, not as adversaries to be defeated, but as powers with legitimate interests that need to be accommodated. And acknowledging something that the last 20 years have made increasingly obvious. The era of unchallenged American dominance is over. A new order is coming, whether America chooses it or not. The only question is whether America shapes that order, or gets shaped by it. That's not weakness, that's strategy. That's how great powers survive transitions instead of collapsing during them. But whether America has the political will, the institutional courage, and frankly, the humility to take that path, I genuinely don't know. What I do know is this. Every week this war continues, that exit gets more expensive, the losses get heavier, the trap gets tighter. So let's bring it all together. America cannot negotiate a ceasefire because Iran's terms would trigger a 5-step chain reaction ending in dollar collapse and economic implosion. America cannot withdraw because leaving the Middle East dismantles the petrodollar, fractures NATO, and destroys the financial architecture the entire American economy depends on. America cannot send ground troops because Karg Island leads to the coast, leads to the mountains, leads to a full land war inside Iran. 3,000 Marines become 500,000. We've seen this movie. America cannot win militarily because Iran has spent 20 years building the perfect counter to everything America knows how to do. The trap is real, the exits are closing, and the clock is running. The only question left is whether America figures that out before the cost of learning it becomes unbearable. If you want more analysis like this, explained clearly without the spin, subscribe and drop your answer in the comments. Do you think America finds a way out? Or does this become the next forever war? I'll see you in the next one.